Welcome back to the Bridge the Gap podcast. My name's Jennifer. I'm an emotional literacy specialist, an early years professional, and also one of the directors at Bridge the Gap Child Mental Health.
Hi, I'm Nikki Webster. I'm a mental health nurse. I'm a director at Bridge the Gap Child Mental Health, and I'm also an ACT therapist.
We thought, why don't we pull out a card from one of our favourite resources, which is the mood card deck, and have a chat about ways we can support children and you as adults actually to explore that emotion and feel a little bit more comfortable with it, I think.
Okay, you ready?
Yes, born ready.
Pick a card, any card.
I'm drawn to this colour. What's that?
Oh, lovely.
Ooh, mindful. I was talking about mindfulness when I was delivering training on Friday, and I said mindfulness is something I would always roll my eyes at and you would have to teach me the evidence and science behind it. But so here is the card for those of you who are actually watching, and it says mindful, and at the back it gives you questions, and it says ask yourself, what are you mindfully aware of? How often do you take the time to relax and meditate? Or how can being mindful help you in life? So I'm going to start with question 3, and I'm going to ask the therapist, how can being mindful help you in life?
So many ways. So mindfulness is very heavily research based. There's a lot of research that's gone into mindfulness, more and more in recent years. Mindfulness is part of ACT therapy, which is obviously what I'm trained in, and it's something that really changed my life. So when we are more mindful and we are present, which is what mindfulness is, it's being in the present moment, it's being actively focused on whatever we're doing. When we're doing that, we are able to focus better. We are able to fully include and involve all of our senses, which we know is good for our mental state. It's grounding with our senses. It's good for our mental state. And it keeps us from being elsewhere in our brain, being more sensorial, basically, which we know, again, is good for humans when we are in touch with our sensorial.
And that all sounds very good and brilliant, but not easy. Because when we say be present, for someone whose mind is constantly racing with it feels like about 30 different conversations in my brain at any one time, being able to be mindful takes practice, doesn't it? And it's not something that, you know, there's a lot of myths out there around what mindfulness is, like it's meditation or it comes from Buddhists, or it's something that you only do when you're feeling calm and peaceful, when actually it's so much more than that. And those are kind of myths that we need to, you know, cut through that noise and say, actually, let's bust that myth. But equally, it's something you can practice. The way I connected with it, for me, from someone who was quite eye-rolly about mindfulness, I think because it's spoken about so much and it's presented to us, often it's presented to us anyway, at a time when we're struggling with our mental health. And when we're struggling with our mental health, we don't want to be told to just be more mindful and that's going to help be present. We want to be able to incorporate mindfulness way before that, so we can practice it and we've got the skills to help reduce the chance of entering a crisis, but also then, because of that practice, be able to tap into it when we are struggling. So the way that I connected with it was when I thought about it and read everything, and you were training me around what this is, and I've since done a teaching mindfulness to children course. It's, for me, it's life before mobile phones. I genuinely believe that the more I put my phone down, the more mindful I am.
The more present you are.
The more present I am. So so I struggle with sleep, as you know, and it's something I've been working a lot on, my morning and evening routines, to try and get a better sleep, you know, and I'm stubborn, so I'm not giving up with this. And one of the things I put in place was that I'm not allowed to touch my phone or watch anything on my phone content wise or anything until I'm up, I've drank my water, I've had my shower or done my skincare, I've got my clothes on, I've done my makeup, and I've stepped outside. That is key.
Nice.
So for me, even if I'm going downstairs and I'm putting my coffee on, that back door's open, I don't care what time of year it is, and I'm just stepping outside. And if it's raining, I'm standing on the periphery.
Being more sensorial.
Because I need to look at daylight or natural light of whatever that, even if it's moonlight, before I welcome in any other stimuli.
Lovely.
So that for me has been key, and it's really having a positive impact. So then what that does is it stops me from listening to anything or watching anything whilst I'm brushing my teeth, whilst I'm doing my skincare, whilst I'm making my breakfast. It's protecting that time in the morning where I'm tuned in and I'm mindful. And I don't know all of the hows, whats and whys like you would as a therapist, but all I know is that I'm seeing a positive impact on my morning as a result of those changes.
Because you are being more sensorial.
Yeah.
We are more so than ever in a cognitive place most of the time.
Yeah.
We are not designed to be in a cognitive place most of the time. In fact, we should have much more sensorial input. So we should be more connected with the outside. We know, research shows us that more connection with nature is better for our mental health. When we are doing, the example you used was great. Actually, when we're brushing our teeth, we should really just be brushing our teeth. We're not designed to be brushing our teeth whilst also thinking, what do I make for tea tonight? Whilst also thinking, how am I going to get the kids to school? Whilst also watching a clip on our phone. We're not designed to be consuming that much cognition at all times. So practicing mindfulness is so important because it strips all of that cognitive back to just one thing at a time.
Which is why for children who struggle with sensory processing, we use distraction techniques at that moment because it distracts them from the sensorial input. So if we're utilising those and we don't need them, that's going to have a negative impact
hugely
on how we feel.
It's fascinating, really. For me, insert mindfulness into your everyday. And that's how you can best practice it. So for me, mindfulness works so well. If I didn't practice mindfulness every single day, I'd feel pretty miserable. I honestly do believe that. Well, I've practiced or not practiced it, and the difference is palpable. And I think for me, it's just taking a moment whilst really having a drink in the morning of tea or of squash. Make me think like I'm drinking. Taking a moment just for myself in the morning, potentially if possible, before my 1-year-old is up. That really matters to me, that where it's quiet, it's peaceful, ideally outside, drinking my drink outside, just having a moment, listening to the birds, whatever it might be, insert it into your day. So on my walk to work this morning, I could hear the church bells ringing. It was slightly starting to rain, and for me that's my favourite part of the morning because it's just me. There's no external pressure. In that tiny short walk to work, from the car to the workplace, I'm just absorbing where my feet are, being where my feet are, being on the pavement, listening to the raindrops, listening to the church bells. That's really important because we're not in our head with a mind that's full, and that's different.
And it's noticing, isn't it? So Fiona Holiday, who's our play therapist here at Bridge the Gap, she shared something on social media where she'd stepped out and the moon just looked incredible over the cathedral. And she shared, and I felt this was really important for me to hear because I'm someone who really does need to feel connected to nature a lot. And I can often feel working in a city, living, the first suburb away from that city without loads of green spaces, that I'm far away from nature. But what she pinpointed is that's a powerful reminder that nature is literally all around us. We just have to notice it. So it's not about, I'm not in the middle of a field or a park, but I look up and there are clouds, there's the sky, there's the moon. It's noticing those things, and that helps us to feel connected to ourselves, the present, and also nature, which we are meant to connect with.
We absolutely are. I love that. As a daily mantra, I say this to myself: don't forget to look up.
Yeah. And I was at London at the weekend, and I couldn't help but look up, and I noticed beautiful window boxes and just amazing architecture, and it just brings these little glimmers, these little moments of joy that help me to feel more peaceful and content. It's not about being happy and all of that big emotion, but just those quieter ones, and I'm noticing those quieter ones because I'm noticing. So in terms of them for children, obviously we try and, well, we do a lot of work around mindfulness at Bridge the Gap. How do parents start this with their children, and how do we get children to buy into that concept, to children who might have already been exposed to mindfulness but in an environment or with an approach that hasn't felt helpful for them in that moment, and has potentially even turned them off trying to explore or learn about it?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think with a lot of this, there is nuance, always. And it is worth being really mindful, particularly around children who have experienced trauma. So never, for example, ask a child to close their eyes. Invite them to, if you would like to do that. But explore that and think about, well, does that feel uncomfortable for my child? So knowing your child is key, and in relation to schools teaching mindfulness, that's really important to remember. And also, when we are bringing our awareness to the present moment, for some children, if that present moment is an unsafe environment, i.e. school, then that's never going to go down well, is it? So it's really important to know when you're doing this that they are in a place that feels comfortable, that they feel safe, and just ask those questions and be curious around that. I think that's important to remember.
Because as a collective, you're not going to know everybody's individual experiences. So therefore, you're not going to know how to finish that mindfulness lesson or session, however it's being approached, in a safe way for every individual. Whereas I think for parents, we've got a bit more insight into our child's experiences. That
absolutely.
This for me, coming from parents, feels a really lovely way to connect with your child as well.
Definitely. So I think for us as parents, like we always talk about, it starts with us modelling it. So when our children see us do those things we've spoken about, so me and you inserting it into our daily routine, talking about that with our children is where to perhaps start. So this morning I had my drink outside, and do you know what, it was really lovely because I listened to the birds and I noticed that it's just started raining, and that's really set me up well for my day because I feel more calm and peaceful. So just using that as an example, I think model that's really key. But also using something fun around mindfulness as well. So there's a common misconception around mindfulness is that it's about stopping our thoughts. That is not the case at all. It's bringing awareness to. So we can acknowledge where we are with our thoughts. We've not got it wrong if we can't stop those thoughts completely. And I think that is where people might fall down. So it's being aware of, and we can just, gently back that thought aside. If it's an intrusive thought and we don't want that thought there, we can gently back that aside and concentrate on, bringing awareness back to our breath or whatever practice you're engaging in at that time. So I think bringing fun to that is really a great way to teach it to our children. So one of the best ways that I do in sessions with children is through food, so mindful eating. So I might bring in a square of chocolate to a session, and we would just notice, how does the chocolate feel in our hand? What do we notice about that chocolate? Is there any inscription on the chocolate? Is there a reflection bouncing off it? Is it smooth? Is it, has it got nuts in? Whatever that might look like. And then placing it on our tongue and doing the same again. So bringing awareness to and really enjoying that. How often do I?
Yeah, I was going to say, don't you put me in this bracket. I know what's coming.
How often do I just very quickly at my desk say, I'm just quickly having a Kit Kat, shove it in, really chomp down.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I genuinely feel like I have naturally my whole life perhaps been more mindful, but it's been seen as perhaps a negative trait. So
interesting.
I've always savoured moments and like cherished moments. I've got really young memories of all sorts of examples of this, but even now, and I don't think everyone can understand it, but if I'm having a cup of tea and some chocolate, I'm not just going to have a cup of tea and some chocolate. I
Enjoy it.
I do. So at home it will be, right, is everything done that I'm going to sit down now, I'm going to have this cup of tea, and I am going to enjoy this moment. I want to be sat, I want to light my candle or put my fire on, and I don't enjoy it the same way, so I don't get as much from it. And maybe I need to find ways of being more mindful without all of that peacefulness around me, so I can access that calm in a more chaotic environment, and that's something perhaps I need to work on. But I've naturally always valued that sort of time where I like to notice the environment. I like the scent to feel a certain way, and even if I'm doing, so I love a word search to relax. So if I'm doing that, I want my favourite highlighter, and I don't know, I just really value that moment space. And that space. And I've always, even as a young child, I remember my mum and dad on a Friday night, you know, they've eaten dinner, that was their kind of date night, if you like. They've eaten dinner, they've not tidied up particularly before they've gone up to bed, you know. And I remember coming down as a child and like wiping the table, the crumbs, and putting the mats away, and I couldn't sit down and turn on the telly from a Saturday morning cartoons until I felt like my environment was, maybe that's not mindfulness, maybe that's just a bit of control. But it's interesting. But maybe that's why I find mindfulness helpful, because it gives me that sense of control.
It slows the pace.
Yeah.
And that's why we need it. So mindfulness slows the pace. We are in a really fast-paced world that, again, we're not meant to be in. So much cognitive overload, let's be honest, day to day. We've got so much in our brains. We are very full of mind. Our mind is very full in not the right way. So mindfulness, bringing presence, bringing awareness to the present moment, slows down the pace a little bit. And that is where the joy comes from, and being aware of those tiny pockets of joy that you mentioned throughout your day. That's because we've slowed the pace just a little bit to allow that to seep into our subconscious and our conscious mind. So I think another really great tip to use with children is even just going out for a walk. This brings in grounding as well. So practicing exploring senses all around us. So what can you hear right now? Again, remembering nuance
for certain
children. What does that ground look like? Does it look muddy? Does it look squelchy? Does it look like you'd really enjoy jumping in that great big puddle? You know, just bringing a little bit of play and awareness to your wherever you are. Yeah,
it's so key, isn't it? I find that myth that mindfulness is something you only do when you are calm and settled, because it's something that I'm tapping into more and more when I'm not calm and settled.
It's a skill.
Well, it's an example I give. Obviously, our workloads are very, very busy, and I've got a lot on at the moment. So I can be sat at my laptop for a huge amount of period of time, and if I do not bring some mindfulness into that time, then I am going to be up there by the end of it. So for me, it's noticing when I'm taking shallow breaths. That's one of my keys. So it's knowing your signs, isn't it? Because it's different for everyone. But for me, it's when I notice those shallow breaths, I've just noticed I've taken a bit of a gasp of air. I perhaps need to step away. I need to make a cup of tea, or I need to just have a walk up and down the stairs, or I need to do something. I need to move my body. I need to stretch. I need to roll my shoulders. I need to take 3 mindful breaths where I am. I need to take a sip of water. You know, just
need to be big.
Yeah, just noticing though the signs for you help you amidst the chaos. So it's not something that I just practice in the morning when I've first woken up, or in an evening working on my evening routine. It's something I can notice in my day to day that then allows me to tap into that
absolutely
act of mindfulness.
For mine, it's my shoulders tense up throughout the day, like just lifting my shoulders up, and I have to consciously roll back my shoulders. It's okay, take a breath, come back to it. So teaching our children how to tune into that about themselves is really key, and then what to do at that point as well.
You know, linking it back to emotional literacy, we say it all the time, but teaching context about emotion is really key. So if I'm feeling a certain way in my body, but I'm in a space that I'm really happy, I've got good friends around me, and I've got no worries racing through my head, maybe I'm excited versus I feel this way, I'm in a situation I feel uncertain of, I've got a couple of worries in my head, I think I might need to speak to a grown-up that I trust. Context is everything.
Yeah, there's so much, isn't there? We could talk about mindfulness, as we've established, for a while. When it comes to any of these emotion cards, and they've all got affirmations, if we don't connect with what's on here, create our own, but also model that as well. So this is something I model with my children, is have an affirmation to myself at the end of a day, for example. So at the end of a day, I will come home and I'll do that. I'll roll my shoulders. I'll practice a bit of mindfulness. Not always, don't get me wrong, but as much as I can. And then I'll say an affirmation on the end of that. And one that I always use, as we've talked about, is never forget to look up. So just let's practice that right now. Let's look up. What can we see? What can we be at this moment in time? So we've talked a lot about mindfulness. What are you mindfully aware of right now, Jennifer?
I think I'm mindfully aware that I really like this room.
Oh, that's a nice one.
I really do. Do you know, when you were saying look up, I love that above the
that is
door.
lovely.
It's a really nice image. And I'm mindfully aware that I'm getting a little bit hungry. I'm ready for maybe some lunch. I'm mindfully aware that our thoughts escalate and we need to bring it back down to that. This, even having a conversation, it's bringing it to the present moment. And I think sometimes we just need to be mindfully aware of how unkind we can be to ourselves with our thoughts. And just slowing it down. What are you mindfully aware of?
What am I mindfully aware of is equally, I really enjoy this space. I was mindful a moment ago that the rain was just pattering on the window, and I love that. I like when I'm feeling cosy inside and I can see the rain on the window. It's one of my favourites. And I'm mindfully aware that in my head I am being unkind to myself because I put in pressure on myself to get certain things done, and I'm already thinking whilst talking about certain activities that I've got happening today. And that is a good example of actually when we can really practice and tune in your day-to-day when you're busy, being more focused in the conversation you're having rather than thinking about what you're going to say next or what activity you've got coming up next.
So the bottom line is mindfulness isn't always easy. It doesn't come natural to all of us, especially in this fast-paced world where there are so many distractions on screens, social media. Mindfulness for me means taking back autonomy over our lives and filtering out some of that external noise so that we can be kind to ourselves and enjoy the moments that we're living. So we hope that you are able to share some of how you are mindful in the comments. And if you've got any questions about anything that's come up within the podcast, then as always, send us a message or get in touch.